All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going over the PowerPoint presentations for Murox ASP.NET 4.6 with C# 2015 6th edition. We're in the middle of Chapter 15, which is on how to use the Details View and Form View controls. We went over the Details View control in a lot of depth and breadth of coverage and looked at an example in the last program, or in the last video, and now it's time to talk about the Form View control. Now, the Details View is probably easier to work with than the Form View control is, but the Form View provides more formatting and layout options. All right? The Details View control renders each field as a table row, whereas the Form View renders all the fields as a single table row. They're similar, but the templates for a Form View control give you more control over how you display the data, because you can lay out everything within a single template. After you create a Form View control and assign a data source to it, you can start jacking with it, so to speak. Now, when you work with the Web Forms Designer to create a Form View control and you bind it to a data source, the Web Forms Designer automatically generates basic templates. All right. For instance, the code that's shown here, and this is on page 555 in the book, consists of a literal header and label control that's automatically been set up for each field in the data source. All right, so again, as mentioned, Details View can be easier to work with. Form View provides more formatting, so it's more versatile in that way. So what does that mean? Well, if you're just down and dirty trying to get something done, you'll probably use the Details View control. If you want to be able to customize it, you'll probably want to use the Form View. All right. When you bind a Form View control to a data source, again, the Web Forms Designer generates an item template that includes heading text and a bound label for each column. You get that automatically. The item template uses the eval and the bind methods that we talked about. Geez, that was back in Chapter 13. All right, and that was back on page, I don't know, I guess it was pages 470 and 471. If the data source includes update, delete, and insert commands, the item template will include the associated buttons. The Web Forms Designer also generates an edit item template and an insert item template, even if the data source doesn't include an update or an insert command. And we'll talk about that more in just a bit. Now, you can modify the generated template so you can use CSS to control the format and the layout that's actually rendered. And that's kind of what we're looking at here on pages 556 and 557. All right, so as this template shows, the Web Forms Designer will also generates edit item and insert templates when you bind a form view to a data source. Okay? These are used to display the fields in edit mode and insert mode. And again, they're generated even if you don't have an update or an insert command. Now, a drawback to using the form view control is once you edit the item template so that the data is arranged in the way you want, normally you'll have to provide a similar layout for both the edit item and the insert item template. In other words, you want them to look, you want them to have a kind of a standard look and feel to them. One way you can do that, though, is to copy the code from one template and paste it into another. So let's take a look at an example that uses that. And this is the order page for the shopping cart application. Now, this was originally presented in Chapter 9. In that chapter, way back at the beginning, I think, of Chapter 9, we used a simple label
and an image control to display the information for the product selected by the user. All right, but remember, you can't use data binding with those types of controls. So we needed C# code in the page load event to set the values of the label in the image control. But in this new version, we take advantage of the data binding ability of the form view control, so no binding is required in the page load event handler. So in other words, less code, more automation. Now this application also uses some of the Bootstrap classes that we talked about in Chapter 10. So let's bring that one up. So this is the shopping cart application. So let me go back to here. Let's stop the run, of course. We should have done that earlier. Let's close. If we asked if we want to save, no, we're not asked. So let's come back into here. And let's bring up our book applications again. You've got access to all this stuff. All right, this will be our shopping cart. So this should hopefully bring back memories for you, to you, whatever, because this is what we covered in an earlier chapter. So if we bring up our cart page, and we look at our cart page in design mode, and we run, guess we wanted the order page, but that's okay, we'll find it. Again, the big takeaway here is, since we're writing, we are writing less code because we're optimizing what we're doing, we're making it easier to work with. So again, we come through here, and as soon as we change that, you notice that it changes automatically. Everything changes. So if we go from Darth Vader to Freddy, notice how all of this stuff will change as well as the picture. All right. So again, this is the shopping cart app we originally had in Chapter 9. This time it's implemented with a form view control that displays all of the data for the product. Plus, we've got some Bootstrap in here. So you'll notice it'll look very nice even when we go in and use it, on a mobile device. The item template for the form view includes labels that are bound to the columns, so we didn't have to put those in. The alignment of the columns is done using Bootstrap column classes. All right. The last thing that's shown in the chapter on pages 560 through 563, which ends the chapter for us, but what's shown in the end of the chapter is the associated code. So we've got our order.aspx code in here. Again, the form view control includes an item template that contains 2 div elements. The first one has the 4 label controls that present the name, the short description, the long description, and the price. The second div has the image control to display the product's images. All right. And these both end up also using the Bootstrap classes so that the image is displayed correctly for the labels and it looks good on all devices. 2 things to notice about this, about the format strings. First, the format string used to bind the image control, and it's in here someplace. Right here. It has images-products0. And again, that's going to make sure that it brings up the first one right away. All right, since the image file column in the products table contains just the name of the image file, not the path, we had to add that. Second, the format string used in the binding expression displaying the unit price, which I don't remember where that was, right here. is displayed in currency format followed by the word each. So the code is really similar to the code for the original program that was presented back in Chapter 9, but there's two big differences. First, only the code in the page load event handler, all right, the only code that's in there now in page load is the code that sets the breadcrumb for the first time the page is loaded. This event handler doesn't have to do any of the data binding because that's now automatically being done in the form view control. Secondly, in this get selected product method, it's simpler than the original version because, again, the data source version for the details view control retrieves a single row based on the item that's selected in the drop-down list, meaning it's not necessary to filter the data view object that's retrieved from the data source. And that pretty much is it. All right, they have another example in here, Extra15.1, that uses a details view to insert rows. I'm not going to run through that. Okay, so in this chapter, we went over the details view and form view controls. We went through the three modes that we had in the details view, where you can be an insert and read only, and I don't even remember the other one right now, but it was edit. That makes sense. We described the basic functions of the details view and the form view control. You saw the details view control is a little bit more, I can't think of the right word, rigid maybe in its format. So if you want more control, you'd want to use the form view control. We explained again these before actions for validation, the after actions that you use with database exceptions. The before action when you're in the active tense, so it's inserting, deleting, updating. The after events when you're in inserted, deleted, and updated. We talked about some of the templates you can use to control the appearance of the details view. We talked about how the details view and form view controls differ. We described the templates that were generated for a form view control. We looked at what a master detail page is. If you remember, that's kind of how we started this. And it doesn't have to be a drop-down list, although it oftentimes is. So that's it for the chapter. We'll save. In the next chapter, Chapter 16, we will be going over how to use two more controls, those being the list view and data pager controls. And I will be back with that lecture shortly.